You are listening to episode 108 of the Air Hug Community Podcast. Hey everybody, this is the Air Hug Community Podcast. If you've never been here before, I'll do a quick intro. My name is Judy Arizosa, and I am a midlife mom, wife, grandma, and fitness professional who started this podcast so that we could have a place to discuss what midlife is really like. All the feels, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the emotions. So this is what we're all about. Sometimes it's just me, sometimes we have a guest. Thank you so much for popping in. I'll do my best to make it enjoyable for you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I am super excited today because today on the Air Hug Community, we have a guest who I have been really excited to get on. We met on a radio program where we were both guests just a few weeks ago on Make America Healthy with Beth Shaw, and we got along so well that we decided let's record another podcast. So here we are, and I will tell you her name. Our guest today is Alicia Cross. She is a personal trainer, a yogi, and an accountability coach in Northern Virginia. So Alicia, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in this career.
Thanks for having me on, Judy. So I got started as a group fitness instructor. I think a lot of women maybe start in that path where you're taking the classes at the gym. And one day they needed a sub. And since I was always there, they tapped me. They asked me if I would be willing to come in and start subbing and teaching a class that opened up. This was over 20 years ago, when back then a gym didn't even care if you had a cert. They were like, you have 6 months to get certified. So I started teaching group fitness, and after that, I went into teaching yoga because yoga was starting to become really popular, as was Pilates. This is when Pilates was getting into gyms as well. So everything I did and I liked, I got certified to teach it. And I got to the point where I was teaching all of the classes. So 7 days a week, as a group fitness instructor, you can't really teach more than one class a day at a gym or facility. So driving around all over Northern Virginia to all different facilities to teach. And it got exhausting. And somebody said to me, well, why aren't you a personal trainer? And that had never occurred to me. I thought, why aren't I a personal trainer? So I got certified in 2010, 2011, and that became my full-time job, still teaching as well. And from there, the gym I was working at, they closed, which of course was traumatic when it was happening, but it was a blessing because I decided rather than starting over at a new gym, I would just start my own business. So I did that in 2014. Took everything online as everybody did in 2020, and here I am still going.
Woohoo! Yay! So it's quite a journey, actually, and I think it's pretty interesting. It's a whole other one topic that we might get into one day, but I think it's interesting how the fitness business is kind of not as regulated as we would like it to be. Like you could just start teaching, But anyways, that's not really what we want to talk about. Today, we're talking about habits versus hacks. And you and I got onto this conversation about all these things that are out there that, the quick fixes, you got to do this, pop your money down for just, a little click of your credit card. You too can be much healthier. But the thing is, how do we know what really works and what doesn't? So today, we'd like to have a little discussion about where to spend your money and where not to, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that this new field of biohacking, or they call it biotechnology, it can be very intimidating to the average person who's following somebody on social media or YouTube or listening to podcasts, and they're hearing about all these futuristic technologies or therapies, and they're thinking that that is the solution to this, not only their personal struggle with health or weight, but also this epidemic we have of weight gain in this country and health. And really, it does come down to basic habits. Basic healthy habits are what is going to solve the problem on an individual level and on a global level. And these expensive hacks are not necessary for the average person.
I so agree. But it worries me because people who do have money are going to plop it down because people want the easy way out. And I also feel like, the average Joe who might not have a disposable income to spend on like IV therapy or,
Mhm.
Any of these other things, it might feel like they're missing out when in fact, what I'd like to say is maybe they're not. So let's unpack a few of these. I'll let you start with whatever one you want to, and let's talk about it.
Let's start with something simple, even wearable devices. And with all these things that we're talking about here, I'm not saying they don't work or they don't have value, but the point is it where the average person needs to start with? And you have devices too. I have my Apple Watch, but you hear all the rage, right, about like Oura rings and Whoop bands tracking not only your activity but your sleep and your recovery. And even these could be a few $100s. And the average person, maybe they don't have a few $100s to drop on a watch or a ring or a band.
Totally agree. All right. So wearables. I'll start right out. I happen to wear an Aura. Do I need it? No. It's nice to have. Yes. Would I be probably just as well off without it? I would say yes, but I'm like fascinated by it more than anything else. It's kind of entertainment.
Right. And that's the thing for you and I, fitness is not only our profession, but it's our passion, it's our hobby.
Mm-hmm.
For us, it makes sense that we're going to want to spend money on these things and we're going to want to track all this data. But maybe for the average person, they are just keeping track of what time they go to bed. Old fashioned way, pencil and paper, just recording how many hours of sleep they get at night, or learning to be more in tune with their body and how they're feeling, if they feel rested. And if they don't, like, then maybe there's some other avenues to pursue. But the first thing is just tracking your sleep and how you feel.
Exactly. Let's talk about tracking calories because
Mm.
that's, I think people love to talk about tracking calories, and in fact, and I think you and I have both talked about this, being in class and it's like, all right, start your engines.
Oh, absolutely. The tracking macros is such a huge fad right now. And yes, looking at your watch, the thing you should not use your watch for is measuring your calorie burn in a workout. It's wildly inaccurate. Some studies have found it's up to 80% inaccurate. And basically, we don't want to get caught in this cycle of, oh, well, I burned this much, therefore I get to eat this much. That's not how it works. And when we are working on the most important thing, which you and I know is strength training, the metric you are measuring in that is not your calorie burn. It's how much weight can you move? How many reps did you do? The calorie burn is not what we're looking at.
Exactly. And how fast can you recover? Can you do another set in 75 seconds? Or does it take you closer to 2 minutes?
That's right. That's right. I always say a healthy heart recovers quickly. And your rest period is one of the things you can manage when you're strength training. Are you resting longer or are you supersetting? It's just another variable that we can manage.
Exactly. And I do feel like that sometimes can be a very dangerous,
slippery slope.
Yeah, because it just takes people down that mindset, especially when people have the mindset of earning food. We don't ever earn food.
1000%. I have a funny story about a client who had one of those watches on, and one day she said to me, "Oh, I burned 200 calories yesterday." And I said, "Well, you burned probably 200 or 2,000 calories yesterday." And she was shocked. She did not understand that we're burning calories all day long. We're burning calories to survive.
Yeah.
We equate calories as this little monster that we are defeating when we work out. And that's not what calories are. It's just the currency of your body.
Yeah. And that brings up a point. A number of years ago, and I don't do this anymore, but every now and then I would have clients ask me to train their children, tweens and teens. And I won't do that anymore. But I remember this person said to me, "Well, why are calories so bad?" And I said, "Well, they're not bad. Where are you getting this idea?" And she had said that in her house, all calories were discussed. She said, "Well, everyone says they're bad, so," and I just thought, oh dear, what a message.
Right. It's sad. And kids are getting this message from media, from their parents, whether their parents are doing it directly or indirectly. And it's something that once it gets in there as a kid, it's in there. It's going to be hard to unlearn that.
It's very hard to unlearn that. And I think, even from myself, when I was a teen and I definitely needed to lose some weight for, to be healthy, my mother said, well, you just have to go on 1,000-calorie diet, because that's what you did back then. That was the knowledge base at the time. And it was very hard to unlearn that. And now I know, like, it's so exciting, like, bring on the carbs and protein, man. If you want to have enough fuel to get through a workout, don't starve yourself.
That's right. That's right. So you and I, we're trying to change the world
That's
one
right.
person at a time.
Exactly. Are there any other wearables? I don't know too much about Whoop, except that it's supposed to measure recovery.
I believe so. Yeah, it seems like the Oura Ring is much more popular. It's funny, researching how much all these things cost, preparing for today. Now I keep getting ads for them like crazy on everything. So I'll probably learn more about them in the coming weeks as I keep getting ads.
Yeah, I probably will too. Now that we're chatting about it, it's like, okay, although I did put my phone in another room, but I don't know how far it has to be.
Smart.
Yeah. Anyway, so wearables is one. Where would you like to go next? I know we have a list to cover.
Yeah, speaking of recovery, I would say things that are really popular right now, I'm hearing a lot about are like red light therapy, even the compression boots. I was lucky enough that I got to do a free session of those at a massage therapy place that had those. So I know it's very nice. It'd be very nice to have a pair of those at home, but those things are pricey. The compression boots can be several hundred to over $1,000. Red light therapy, the full body red light therapy, that's about $6,000. And of course, that's so tempting because it talks about recovery
for one treatment, or
no, to own it in your house.
Oh, okay.
So you can do it daily. It's supposed to act on all of your cells. They talk about how it works for hair loss in men, anti-aging to the face for women. So that sounds like something that sounds like, the miracle, the fountain of youth that we're all looking for.
Sounds too good to be true. Yeah.
That's right. But $6,000 for a full body light panel. Like, I don't have that kind of money.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I think even recovery, because recovery is getting more popular these days.
Yeah. Tell me about the compression boots.
The compression
for our audience. I want to make sure we just cover it real quick.
Yeah. So you put them on, they go all the way up your leg and they inflate with air. And so I think it has like a rhythmic filling and releasing of air. So it's kind of squeezing your legs. Great for recovery, probably also good for circulation. I'm guessing maybe it has some similar benefits to perhaps foam rolling with that kind of pressure, but it's so nice because you lie in like those zero gravity chairs, those reclining zero gravity chairs, and you just let it do the work.
No wonder it's so popular.
Exactly.
We always want to let someone else do the work, but again, very expensive and not necessary.
Right. The biggest recovery, I always remind people, like, well, are you drinking enough water? Are you eating enough protein? Are you getting enough calories? Sleep. Not doing maybe really extreme exercises back-to-back day, or extreme workouts back-to-back day, like giving whatever muscle you worked or whatever energy system you use that time off to recover. How about your general life stress? So all those things, if you're not checking off those basic habits, like we said, these hacks aren't going to help you. They're not going to save you.
Exactly. It's amazing though. We don't want we want like some, like, what's newer, what's better, what's shiny, what's out there that's grabbing our attention and you just talked about all these things that are basically within our control and inexpensive.
Exactly. Inexpensive or free.
Yeah. I know you have to put a little work into making sure that sleep, that you sleep and that you get enough protein and, all those things. But again, it's habits over hacks.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah. Let's talk about IV therapy.
Oh. And that's one thing I didn't even look that up. What do you know about IV therapy?
I know very little about it, actually, but in fact, and I should have looked it up, but my understanding is they're putting back something in your system that isn't there. So I actually don't know whether it's electrolytes or vitamins. If it's just fluid, all I got to do is drink water. but I do know people that will go and get, I've seen it in two ways. One is post hangover.
Mm.
And I've actually seen resorts advertising it. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be in a foreign country and let someone stick a needle in me when I'm not sick. Like,
Exactly. I don't like needles. I'm not going to go
No.
willingly.
Right. And then
Yeah.
the other is actually to recover for, you just need to get your energy back. And I'm like, well, what are they giving you? Like, sugar and saline water with some
Yeah.
electrolytes and selling it as an expensive IV therapy. I don't really know what it is, but
And
I
I
would
think you can get a cocktail, like maybe it's vitamins or.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard anything negative. I haven't heard anybody that's been like overdosed on a vitamin. So I don't think there's risks, but also maybe it's a cool thing to say that you did.
Yeah.
So makes a cool selfie on Instagram or a story. That could be part of it.
I've heard a few stories, personal stories from, talking to people, and I'm like, what? And so I cannot actually defend it or put it down at this point because I don't know that much about it. But to me, it seems like I'm not going to spend my money on that.
Exactly. And it goes back to the whole thing. I'm not saying they work or don't work, but for the average person who just needs to get their habits dialed in and they do not have the funds to spend on these things, I want you to know, all hope is not lost. You can get healthy without these expensive, trendy hacks.
Yeah. When we were talking the other day, you made a very good point because I talked about a lot of people will use the excuse that eating well is expensive. And I loved what your reply was. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase you, but you said, well, if there's someone who's listening to this podcast who has a smartphone, who's on social media, they can afford to buy healthy groceries.
That's right. That's right. And it doesn't have to be the organic. It doesn't have to be the overpriced, expensive, processed, healthy foods. It can be whole natural foods that are going to be healthy.
Yeah.
And yes, for most people listening to us right now, they do have the money to go to the grocery store and buy potatoes and vegetables.
Right. Right. If you live in a place, and unless you live in Alaska, you don't, I mean, and I don't even know what their growing season is, but wherever you are, you live in a place that has a growing season. And you can capitalize on your growing season and get as much local stuff for inexpensive as you can. And like you say, it doesn't have to be organic. I think that's right. Where people kind of like well, if I can't eat organic, and then they forget about it. And 3 aisles later, they're buying, highly processed food with, crappy fat in it and, potato chips, whatever. And if you can't, there's nothing wrong with frozen vegetables.
I love them. Yeah. That's one of the best things you can do is keep frozen vegetables in the freezer. Even for, I hear moms say, well, my kids won't eat them. I'm like, there's no reason why you can't put some vegetables on your plate. I can't help you with the kids, but you need some vegetables.
Right. Yeah. I get it that you don't force your kids and you can, that's again, another topic. And I mean, I raised 4 kids. I have to say they went through their picky years, but they're all adults now. And you know what? They love to cook. They love to eat well. And they also love a good, like whatever, like pizza or whatever, or burger meal, whatever, but they love good food too. Getting back to the freezer, I want to say 2 things that are always in my freezer, no matter what, are frozen spinach and frozen broccoli. I mean,
yeah.
You have frozen spinach, frozen broccoli in your freezer, and you have some eggs, or you have the makings for a protein smoothie. Now, I don't put broccoli in that, but I would put my spinach in. I mean, between those 2, you can pretty much cover a lot.
Well, I'm going to tell you something that's going to change your life. Get frozen cauliflower. That disappears in a smoothie.
I do love frozen cauliflower, but I never put it in a smoothie. Do you get the riced cauliflower or just the chunks?
I get the chunks because they're cheaper, and I'll defrost it a little bit because those big chunks in the blender might be a little too much to ask my blender. So it just gets a little softer, put it in there, it disappears. That's also a good strategy for kids too, because if you mix the cauliflower if you're giving them a smoothie, they're not going to know it's there.
Yeah.
So it's something, it's a vegetable.
Exactly. I know that when my granddaughter sees me eating a smoothie, especially if it's purple, she
Mhm.
wants some. I'm like,
Yep,
yes, of course, we share.
exactly. Yeah. So that's a
So
great for moms and kids, sneaking in some
yeah.
more fiber and vegetables.
Yeah. So eating well does not have to be expensive. And for the third time, I just want to say organic is great, but it's not necessary.
That's right.
And there are ways to eat well, with, all the typical things, that you've probably heard at this point in time. Stick to the perimeter of your grocery store, try to eat more whole food, try to stay away from packaged food. Now, listen, I eat pasta out of a box every week. I will say I am not anti-box for pasta. I don't make my own pasta, and I do choose a pasta that's a little higher in protein. Just tends to help.
That's right. I think for us to set a goal that we're eating zero processed food is unrealistic.
Yeah.
It's just look at the label. If you can read the ingredients, if it is made with ingredients that you could buy and you could make it if you wanted to, then to me that's an okay processed food.
Yeah. Yeah. Even pasta sauce. And I know my mother would turn over in her grave. I grew up Italian, but there are great pasta sauces out there that you can grab. And there's a very easy, quick, affordable meal. There are a lot of them out there that pay attention, and some will even tell you, they're heart healthy, but you turn around and read the label and literally there's everything that's in your kitchen. And
That's
just
right.
as an example, didn't mean to get off on that, but I really like to make the point that it's not that expensive, especially take out the fact that you're not buying as much junk food.
Exactly. And it's more filling.
Yeah.
That's right.
So are there any other hacks that you looked into that you think are kind of questionable? Not necessity, but maybe it's a like to have, but not a need to have?
Well, the cooling mattress pads seem to be a really big rage right now. And it's really great that people are focusing on sleep as part of their recovery and their overall health. But even looking those up, those are a couple hundred to a couple $1,000s. So those may be a little out of reach for most people.
Mm-hmm.
And things like cryotherapy, going and getting those treatments, they seem to be not that costly as far as treatments go. Maybe about the price of a massage. But for my money, I'd rather get a massage than this cryo treatment. But it's really
So
trendy.
tell our listeners about cryotherapy.
Oh, you get into this container and it's below freezing. And I don't think you're in there for very long, but it's supposed to be, this, I guess it's more extreme than taking an ice bath.
Oh God, I hate
And
those.
it's good. I know. It's supposed to be good for inflammation and healing. Even if the ice bath is the route you're going, people make tubs. You can invest in tubs to have these tubs right in your house to do these cold therapy and these cold treatments. Because you keep, when you listen on the podcast, I keep hearing people say, well, your cold shower doesn't do it. You have to be submerged in this ice water or in this cryotherapy. And again, that may be a little out of reach for most people.
Yeah. And you know what? I think a cold shower is better than not trying it, personally.
Yeah, that's true. And the cold shower does something to your nervous system, which is why you have to be careful if you have any health issues. But it is going to give you that adrenaline rush. It may not be that full body inflammation that you're getting from being submerged or being in cryotherapy. However, I don't know how you coach your clients, but I encourage them not to go towards that cold therapy because we want that inflammation response when we are training. We want the muscles to
inflammation is healing, right?
That's right. That's right. So I don't want them to dampen that effect. So I'd rather them take that quick cold shower or the last few seconds of their shower, go with the cold water than getting it submerged into a tub of ice.
I would agree with that. And just, one of the nice things about just ending, if you shower at the end of the day, it's nice to cool your body down. And again, I'm not saying ice water, but cool, because if your body temperature is a little bit lower, you're going to sleep better. So,
right.
But you don't need to go through those extremes like the mattress, or I personally don't think so.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, sure, it sounds like a luxury if it's affordable to you, but can we turn down the heat in the winter? Can we turn up the AC in the summer? fans, less blankets. So maybe there's some other solutions.
So let's say it's okay. So I live in upstate New York. Winters are cold. Could you just go outside? I mean, not to get frostbite, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It probably has something to do with the contact on your skin. But I would imagine that going outside in the cold might have the same effect as the cold shower, where it's not getting that anti-inflammatory effect, but it's having that adrenaline rush on your nervous system.
No, that would be a good thing to find out. I don't really know, but I just thought of that. I'm like,
yeah, it's kind of like
you don't have to spend money on. Yeah,
exactly. Yes, go run outside real quick in the cold, in the snow, and you'll feel it. You'll feel the effects.
We used to do that when we were kids, when we would dare each other. I dare you to run to the end of the driveway in the snow and back with no shoes on, which is probably stupid,
right?
You know, but no coat, you know, and
I think you have your next Instagram challenge this winter.
Oh my gosh. You did not hear that here.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Oh my gosh. What about now? Some people will think that this is a fad, but you and I know that it isn't. And what I'm going to talk about is kettlebells.
Okay. They are definitely gaining in popularity. I think we have CrossFit to thank for that. I think CrossFit, the benefit that CrossFit did have on the world is it introduced people to the barbell and to kettlebells and to lifting, especially for females. But kettlebells have been around for a long time, maybe as far back as 6th century BCE, definitely in the 1700s in Russia. They were used to measure grain. So they kind of were the counterweight to measure grain. And then, of course, people were men were using them as like a circus performance, you know, the strong man and lifting those old fashioned barbells and dumbbells. So the kettlebell was part of that. And CrossFit popularized pretty much one movement. They popularized like the kettlebell swing, but there's a whole art to it. You know, just like there's the clean and jerk and the snatch in weightlifting with the barbell, there's also the clean and the snatch in the kettlebell, which are a lot more accessible to most people than those movements done with a barbell. And, you know, what I say about the kettlebell is it works on everything. You're going to work on your strength, your core, your balance, your stability. You're also going to work on your posture because there's a lot of posterior chain, and it's no impact cardio. So you're going to get
it's cardio. Yeah,
exactly. So it kind of checks off all of those boxes. It's like a tool, and it's just what you do with it within the workout.
And I think it's important for people to know that it's not a fad. It's been around. It's older than all of us.
Exactly. And I don't think it's going anywhere.
I don't think it is either. And it is something that you and I both really like to utilize in our plans.
Yeah. And clients, you know, sometimes it's hard to get them to embrace the kettlebell training because with kettlebells, you can't go out and buy a 5 or a 10-pound kettlebell. You can't use lightweight. Any clients who have been working with me for any period of time, especially females, I don't care if they're 60 or 70 years old, I'm like, you need to get a 25-pound kettlebell. And some of them started with the 20s, and it was music to my ears when they said, I think this is too light for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's exciting. And I'm right there with you with being a huge advocate of kettlebell training and learning how to do it right. You know,
that's right. It's really
working
important.
With someone who knows what they're doing.
That's right. And it's not the first step, right? As you know, you want to have you want to have good body awareness, good balance, good core strength, and then kettlebells can be the next evolution after that.
Mm-hmm. Totally love it. So is there anything else that I'm missing?
I would be interested to hear too what you think about this, but continuous glucose monitors seem to be a big fad right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from what I understand, if you do not have diabetes, these are not going to be covered by your insurance company. So you're going to be investing a couple $100s in these. A lot of them come with apps. I don't know if there's a subscription for the app, but this concept of not wanting glucose spikes. But from what I'm understanding, that's what happens. You eat and it spikes. And as long as it comes back down, your insulin is doing its job, you're fine.
You know, I would think if you don't already have a problem, then why do you need to know that? And I have seen a lot of social media posts will say that, you're fasting glucose, your fasting glucose only needs to be less than 100. But these people say, there are people out there saying, no, it needs to be less than 60. And I'm like, why? Why does it need to be less than 60? First of all, why are you arguing with, what medical science? And I know sometimes things like when we talked about like recommended daily allowance for different vitamins and stuff, that's a different thing. But I don't think we should mess around with our blood sugar. People, we need energy, sugar in our blood. We need that so that our brain can function, and so the rest of our body can function. So having low glucose all the time is not the goal. As you said, recovering is actually the goal.
Right. To me, that's akin to back in the day when they thought exercise was dangerous because it raised your heart rate. Well, now we know you have to raise your heart rate, and can you recover? I think it's the same thing with glucose. Like, yes, you're going to eat things that are going to raise your blood sugar, provided that you don't have diabetes. I think that's the way the system is supposed to work.
Yeah. And the thing is, what you want is maybe you might want like let's say you're eating a diet with a lot of whole foods, which has natural fiber. So you're, instead of getting the big peak, like you would get with like maybe, a lollipop or, something very sugary, a glass of orange juice, you'll get that big spike and then you get that big low. If you're eating more whole unprocessed foods, you're going to get a smaller spike and a smaller dip, which is going to actually be better overall. But I don't understand the need, I suppose if you're worried about this, you should contact your internist. But I don't understand the need to be knowing your glucose every minute of the day. That's and trust me, I love statistics and I love to know about like body statistics. That's one that I'm like, I smell a moneymaker in that one for, without a good reason.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like what you were saying, rather than buying the continuous glucose monitor, how about stop eating lollipops?
Yeah, right.
Right. Like, do you need that glucose monitor to tell you that candy is spiking your blood sugar?
Right. Instead of having, white toast and orange juice for breakfast, maybe you're going to have a whole grain type of food and a piece of fruit.
Yeah. And, add some protein, add some fat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always. Right.
That's right.
So, am I forgetting anything that we talked about the other day in our little pre-talk?
There's just some interesting adaptogens and nootropics out there that everybody is talking about. So some interesting supplements, again, that people may think that that's the route they need to go. But again, rather than taking those, are you eating whole foods? Are you getting colorful vegetables, eating the rainbow? And then maybe are you taking some basic supplements that you need? But some of this stuff may be out of reach. It may be contraindicated for other health issues. There may be interaction concerns if you're taking other medication. So these adaptogens and nootropics that everybody's talking about, they don't need to be the first go-to.
Yeah. And a word about supplements, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me on this. Supplements are not regulated by the FDA. So they are under no obligation whatsoever to disclose on the label what's actually inside the supplement, unless they are third-party verified. And so the USP, US Pharmacopoeia, has a seal. And if the USP Pharmacopoeia seal is on the supplement that you're looking at, then that's what's on the label is inside. There's nothing extra. But if you're taking a supplement that is not third-party verified, and there are other verification agencies, but I stick with that one, you're actually taking a risk, so let's say you're buying it from, which is why I will never sell supplements, by the way. I just think it's a total conflict of interest for a healthcare worker, a personal trainer, a physical therapist, a chiropractor to say, or a personal physician to say, hey, buy my supplements. These are the ones you need to have. And by the way, I'm making 20% off of you. I have a real problem with that. But anyways, the big problem is You need to make sure you know what you're taking. And if you want to take them for all sorts of reasons, and you discuss it with your doctor, because some of these things can interact with medicines that you may or may not already be on, or that you may need to be on in the future, or they may be providing symptoms that you need to tell your doctor about, because all sorts of things can happen.
That's right. That's why whenever I talk about supplements, I always talk about it in the way of like, okay, I heard about this. Perhaps you want to do your own research and talk to your doctor, or this helps me. This is what I take. Do your research, talk to your doctor. And then it is up to us, the buyer, to do the research and to know if what we're taking is good quality.
Yeah. As consumers, I think we are responsible for what we put in our body,
Exactly.
And we can't just go because someone on TikTok said, that chicken feet are good for you, I don't know where that came from.
It's not too far off base what some people are prescribing these days.
Yeah. There've been all sorts of strange things that I've had people tell me about. So, and I know there's a lot out there on social media, like drinking straight vinegar and baking soda. I'm like, what?
Right. And I think everybody wants to be at the forefront. They want to say that they're doing this new exciting protocol, or they don't want to miss out on what everybody else is doing. They don't want to be out of the loop. And it is hard for those who are not in this industry. When they hear something, they don't know how to separate, like, oh, this is real news, this is a breakthrough, versus this is pseudoscience.
Yeah. Well, let's take caffeine, for example. Caffeine can be praised or demonized. It depends on all sorts of different things. What's your source? Who do you want to listen to? There's a great article that came out, and it was research. I want to say New England Journal of Medicine, but I'm not sure. It might have been American College of Cardiology. But for all the things that people say that caffeine was bad for, it was a great article about all the wonderful things. Now, if you don't already drink coffee or consume caffeine, it doesn't mean to start. But if you already have a habit and you're not having trouble sleeping, basically it's like, don't worry about it. You got enough other things to worry about,
Right. And that's always what I say to people. If you're having trouble sleeping, why are you drinking caffeine?
Yeah.
Or,
make sure 7 hours. The most recent thing I read was 7 hours before bed. But I personally, I'm more like a 9-10 hour. But there is a thing that, and I don't know if I would spend the money again to do this, but you can find out, and I'm not telling anyone to do this, and I haven't done this, but you can actually find out how fast you metabolize caffeine.
Like they see if they have the gene for it, or
there's something. Yeah. Personally, I'm not going to pay hundreds of dollars for someone to tell me that. I can just figure it out. Like, okay, if I drink caffeine at 4:00, I'm not going to fall asleep. But if I have my last caffeine at noon, I'm probably not going to have a problem,
Right.
I mean,
or if somebody has anxiety, that's another issue. It's like, well, let's wean you off the caffeine and see if that's still as much of an issue. For me, I was starting to get migraines, and I'm not someone who ever had migraines. And it turned out that caffeine was the trigger. And so now that's just not part of my life anymore.
It's just like, yeah, and it's so funny. Like for years, I told myself a story about caffeine was my favorite pre-workout. Not caffeine, but coffee. It was a coffee story. And I've talked to actually my daughters about this, because I think we have long winters here, and, we keep the house cold. A warm beverage has always been a sign to me of, oh, it's time to sit down and relax, and just, that means time out. But what I've learned is that it's not so much what's in the cup, it's the fact that it's hot liquid.
It's the ritual. It's the ritual
And it's
of it.
the ritual. It's the smell. But for me, I have the same relaxation, arguably more relaxation, with an herbal tea.
That's right. And you can get decaf coffees that are Swiss water processed. You can use tea, and it may take a transition period, but once you are through that transition period, it's not going to feel any different to you. You've already conditioned yourself that, like you said, that ritual of that hot beverage, that's all your brain needs to perceive.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, I think, that there's a lot of stories that we tell ourselves.
Yes, yeah.
And for me, the coffee story was one when I kind of not too long ago, I wanted a cup of coffee in the afternoon, and I only drink my coffee black, and I'm like, this doesn't even taste good. And what I realized is after one cup of coffee, after that first cup of coffee in the morning, coffee doesn't taste that good.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I was like kind of forcing this down, or maybe wishing that I could put cream or sugar in it, but I don't really, that doesn't serve me well. So, so I don't,
Yeah.
Isn't
And
it
that's
so
that
interesting? My
being
life is,
self-aware.
yeah, but a lot of things, of course, that's another thing, but it's the mindset we have around certain habits.
That's right.
We
think
can or can't.
This is me, this is who I am, this will never change. And that is a story.
It's a story.
Yeah.
So a lot of how we manage our habits is a story.
It's true. Yeah. And sometimes it's unconscious. We have to really dig down and question. And that's why listening to podcasts like this is so helpful, because you hear another perspective. You don't know what you're thinking. You also don't realize that there's another way to think until you hear somebody else say something and put it into words. And it's like, it's that story that kind of shakes you, even hearing that somebody doesn't drink coffee or doesn't drink coffee in the afternoon. And it's like, what? That can kind of like wake you up. And it's like, well, maybe I don't need that coffee in the afternoon. Maybe I don't need that second cup of coffee. And that's why getting these other points of view, that's one of the benefits of social media and technology, is we can hear these other stories, which helps us understand ourselves better.
I'm really glad you said that, because we do so much bashing about social media, but you brought up a benefit, that, at least it gets you to think.
That's right.
You don't have to believe everything you hear, but it definitely is enough for you to go out and the beauty of what we have now, everyone has a smartphone, is you have research at your fingertips.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you can't say you didn't know.
Yeah. And now, again, depending on what you search on Google, you can't believe everything. But if you're into research and you want the reasons in research, you can always use Google Scholar. That's my favorite go-to when I'm like, is caffeine bad, blah, blah, blah. Or you just pick a question and then put the words after it, Google Scholar. Google Scholar cites research.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And so that's kind of nice.
Yeah. And, when you do this long enough, you also start to learn who the trusted resources are. And like you said, they're usually the ones that aren't selling the thing they're talking about.
Yes. If there's an ad, if it's in the first 5 slots on Google and has the 2 little letters AD in front, those are the websites not to go to, because they're not impartial, right? They're profiting from the information that they're trying to get you to believe.
Exactly.
Versus Google Scholar is all research. And I will often go to Harvard Health and Mayo Clinic for things.
Yep.
If you just, so you don't stick at the top, you got to go down a little bit in Google to find these things. And then I'll go to Google Scholar as well. So
yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah. Anyways, wow, this has been habits over hacks. I like this. What are some of your favorite habits that you feel are adding to your healthy lifestyle?
The basics are, I get up every morning, go for a walk. So not only am I getting those steps in, I'm also getting exposed to sunlight. That's great for your circadian rhythm. Actually helps you to sleep at night. Exercise, movement, not only prioritizing strength training, but also getting a day of yoga, a day of Pilates each week. Eating healthy, drinking all of the water, and making time to de-stress, decompress, whatever that is, whether it's a breathing practice or walking away from the devices, playing with my dog, going for a walk in the evening with my boyfriend so we can talk and catch up on the day. But I would say those are the most important things.
I like it. I like it a lot. So I have a question, and I've read a little bit about circadian rhythms. If you're not a person who can get that outdoor walk in during the day, but you can get it in at some point during the day before it gets too late. Is there a cutoff point? Although you did say you walk in the evenings as well.
I get this information from the Huberman Lab podcast. I don't know if you heard about him, but if you're into the research and the science, you would love it. And he talks about how important it is to get the light in your eyes from the sunrise and the sunset. So if you can get outside, so first thing when you wake up, get outside, or when the sun is coming up, if you're up before the sun, you got to get that sun in your eyes. Even if it's not going for a walk, can you sit outside and do work, or sit outside and drink your coffee? And then when you're getting exposed to the sunset as well, that's letting your body know it's time to unwind. It's time for that dim light onset melatonin release. If you do not have access to that, you can look into like the light boxes, shine those on your face first thing in the morning. It's a substitute, not as good as the real thing, but the light in the morning is really, really crucial.
It's pretty cool. So it depends on the time of year.
Exactly.
I think
that can make it hard.
I do try to get outside after my first few morning clients when it's still early. Right now, I'm lucky because the sun is up before they come, but in, probably 10 more weeks, it's not going to be. But then actually that's a benefit too. Here goes the mindset, right? Well, that's okay because the sun will be coming up as they're leaving. I can still get outside.
There you go. Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's just a nice little thought. I do feel bad for a lot of corporate people in the winter, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, because sometimes they go to work in the dark and they come home in the dark.
That's right.
And that wears and tears after a while.
It's true. Yeah, it's hard. But that's why it's so important to get all the other things in check and in alignment. And maybe for that person, that's the person who wants to spend money on the light block or the light box and blue light blocking glasses because they're not able to get the natural sunlight. So then maybe they need to invest in some of those things.
That would make a lot of sense. Yeah. I have never looked into light boxes. But I do kind of wonder,
and I think there's some science behind them as well. I always think that we've got to be getting some benefit. Those of us who have the ring lights and the lights for being on social, we got to be getting some of that.
I hope so. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always like to sit by a window when I have some downtime. And, often that's in the afternoon. But of course, at the end, in the middle of winter, that's almost sunset.
Right.
Late afternoon.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I say to my husband, our living room and the places that I like to sit, they're not configured for me to sit. And he's like, why are you always changing the furniture? And I'm like, just can't seem to get it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
He comes home. He's like, not again. I'm like, yeah, sorry.
Yep. You got to make it work. You got to make it functional for you and your needs.
Got to do it. So this has been such a great chat. I want to thank you so much for hopping on.
Thank you.
And
thank you
where
for
can people
me.
find you? Yeah.
I am everywhere. Alicia Cross Training, ALICIA Cross Training, Instagram, Facebook. My website is aliciacrosstraining.com. And you can email me at alicia@aliciacrosstraining.com. So anywhere you want to find me.
Excellent. I will put all that in the show notes.
Thank you.
This has been so great. We need to keep chatting.
I know.
And folks, if I find anything or if you find any more information on light boxes, just to actually set the record straight, I'll share it somewhere along the line, and I'm sure you will too.
Oh, perfect. Yes.
So, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Oh boy, from wearables to kettlebells to IV therapy to all sorts of things. There are hacks and there are habits, and there are things that might seem like hacks but really aren't, and there are things that might seem to be really helpful but may not be. So you really have to do your homework is what it all boils down to. Don't believe everything you see or read. Go ahead and do your homework, and remember, Google can still, when you search something on Google, make sure you're not looking at an ad or something where people are being endorsed to tell you what they want you to hear. So you have to be really thorough. But I thought this was really, really interesting, and I'd like to do a little bit more research on IV vitamin therapy because I think it's becoming more and more popular, and I just don't know, even with having a healthcare background, I just really don't know if it's necessary, and I would hate for people to spend hard-earned money on things that are not necessary. And here's the thing, is fitness does not have to be expensive. When you have healthy habits in place, you can go a long way, and you don't need to get into any fad. As far as wearables go, if you like them, wear them, but you don't have to do it. It's not a requirement for making you healthy. I hope that this episode helped you. If you'd like to speak with Alicia or get in contact with her, you can find all her information in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. It's always my pleasure to bring on these guests and clarify topics that might be of interest to midlife people like you and I. Anyways, I would like to thank you again, and I'll see you back here next Tuesday on the Air Hug Community Podcast.